I think that's the sleeper in Montana, to be honest with you.
It's definitely Montana's little secret for sure, but I don't know how long it's going to stay that way.
Today, we're talking all things Montana, my favorite place on God's green earth. If you guys follow my journey, you know that I've been investing in Montana, most importantly, Whitefish, Montana, and the surrounding areas for about the last 2.5 years. I have just sold a property that's $9 million in transactions that I've done in 2.5 years just in Whitefish with our special guest today, that is the foremost short term rental real estate agent in all of Montana. That means from West Yellowstone to Big Sky to Bozeman to Whitefish. If everybody will welcome Lauren Taylor. How are you, Lauren?
Doing great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So let's talk all things Montana. People that call you and say, hey, I'm interested in Montana. I'm sure a lot of them have said, I've seen Bill works with you and seen him investing there. And they think it's Yellowstone, the television show. What's the reality of Montana? You've lived there for a very long time. I fell in love with it about 3 years ago. And I think there's certain sections that are investable for us as short-term rental investors and certain sections that are not. What say you about that?
Back to the Yellowstone comment. I think the only truth to that show is the development aspect and the tourism aspect that they bring into it, where people are starting to put us on the map, and that there's a lot of conflict, local conflict about it. Last time I checked, I don't think we actually kill each other over land anymore. But I don't know.
I don't know. There were gunshots at B&B camp. You were there. You heard them, right?
Yes, yep, I sure did. So yeah, there's a little bit of truth to that show, but maybe not the whole thing. Obviously, theatrics are there for a reason. But I think that primarily people come to Montana for our amenities. And I'm talking about the God existing amenities, right? Like the water, the skiing, the scenery, the national parks, all of those things. That's why people are coming here. So to find those pockets to where those amenities are either nearby or sometimes right in your backyard, those are the sweet spots. We're a very big state, so not everywhere's got those, but there's definitely some focal
Yeah,
areas.
if you go to the far northeast part of the state, there's not a whole lot up in that part
That's all
of
you're
the
doing
state.
up there.
Exactly. It's like being in South Dakota virtually, right?
Yeah.
But like you bring that up. I used to call when I first came. So when I first started looking, and before even we met, I ended up with a shitty agent in Bozeman, and that's how you and I came together. Once I had a bad experience with the first agent that I met there. And Bozeman is like Silicon Valley for outdoor activities, right? But the reality is, so is the Bitterroot Valley. So essentially, the Gallatin Gateway, Whitefish, Glacier, Yellowstone, like 70% of that state, at least on that northern middle side to the west side, is just unbelievable. And when I talk about traffic drivers, you look at Bozeman, a lot of people don't know. They just think Big Sky for ski, but you also got Bridger Bowl that's there. You got Paradise Valley. You got the Gallatin Gateway, but you're close to the Yellowstone River, which is the second highest stocked river behind the Missouri for trout per mile in the entire state. I think people don't understand these things, right? So I am a true believer, one, that a lot of people think that Montana is not investable today, but I believe we can find properties in any market that actually are investable. So what do you think about that? If somebody came to you and said, look, Lauren, I've got $1 million budget and $200,000 in cash. I'm just looking for a really cool place in Montana. Where would you send them?
If they've got $1 million budget, I'm going to focus more on those kind of higher traffic areas, whether it's a condo on the ski hill or in one of our downtown communities that are thriving, because as $1 million isn't going to get you very far as far as having that picture perfect 4+ bedroom place, gorgeous views. It just doesn't exist much for us. However, we can find something that it's in a high traffic area to where that budget is more than doable. But we're definitely looking at more of a condo standpoint or townhome kind of downtown or ski side property for those type of budgets, I think.
Because if you're looking at that kind of budget and you want something like what I was lucky to find in my first place, right? And on the river and that type of stuff, you're really going to have to be pretty remote. You're going to need to go to like Superior or someplace maybe outside of Red Lodge, deep south in the Bitterroot before it gets down to, I forgot the name of the area where it goes like behind you again as it gets closer to West Yellowstone. There's probably only a few places that you could do that, right?
Totally. Yeah. And that's where I think working with a local expert is super important because there's so many submarkets to our high traffic areas that people have never heard of. Ennis, like you said, Red Lodge, Olney. Like who's ever heard of Olney?
Nobody.
Nobody. But
Look at the ski resort that I wanted to buy, right, in Phillipsburg.
Yeah.
And the thing that I think you can get in Montana is you can create a destination.
Yes.
Not going to do it for $1 million. You're probably going to need to be in the $2 million or $3 million range. But you could go to Phillipsburg. You can go to Red Lodge. You can go to Olney. And don't forget, I paid less than $1 million for that place in Olney. Now,
Yep.
granted, it's been over 2 years, but I think if I remember correctly, I think we paid like $945 basis or something like that, $950, $980.
$950.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
But that thing did over 200 grand in the first full year that I rented it. So I think you got to take advantage of Montana, meaning I've got the views, I've got the river. If you can create, and I agree with you in the condos. Honestly, if I look at right now, Lauren, that 1-bedroom ski in, ski out condos, cash on cash is going to be my highest return, believe it or not. And that's at a ski resort that you would think would do nothing during the summer, but I'm actually doing very well during the summer up there right now, which is blowing my mind.
Well, and that's something, again, that you have to pay attention to with what's happening locally. Like they're doing a lot of development on the mountain, putting in new restaurants, new shops, things like that, that are, long-term play going to completely change that seasonality of that location. Yeah. 10 years ago, did the entire town shut down during the off season? Yes. It's not like that anymore. And it's only getting better.
Well, look at the big development that's going on with Discovery Land Management down at Lakeside. They've already bought marinas. They're negotiating blacktail. You look at what Sean is doing and his partners out at Farm to Market. There's so much massive development going on in the Whitefish market, really the Flathead Valley in general, right? And as we were talking about beforehand, most people here know that I just sold last Friday, or you sold it for me, my big Whitefish retreat that for $3.4 million, we got $200,000 over asking same day, right? And I think there's this sweet spot in Whitefish, and I'm still looking to reinvest there in like the $2 million range to $4 million range. So we saw 20% appreciation in 7 months on that property, right? I mean, that's obviously not sustainable, but when I underwrote that, I was underwriting that at 7 to 7.5% on essentially almost a $3 million purchase. You're talking $200,000 to $225,000 a year in appreciation. So I'm a believer that if people need minimal cash flow to where you could do a 5% to a 10% cash flow, but you want massive upside on appreciation and even a lifestyle asset, that is a great market. Just quadruple check with the county and the state so you don't end up in a position like I ended up in when I thought I did all the right due diligence, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think, and that's what I tell clients all the time. I'm like, if you're in that like 17 to 20% return, it's hard to do here. It's not impossible, but you do have to find those little pocket, like needle in a haystack situations. But if you're here, like you said, for a lifestyle asset that you and your family or your friends and family are going to use, and you're okay for a somewhat long-term appreciation, this is absolutely the spot to do that because we are exponentially growing and showing no
I think you
signs
can
of
find that
slowing
15 to
down.
20%. You just got to go to places like Prey between Paradise Valley and Gardner that has much less restrictions and do some multi-units out there. You've got to go to places like Coram, where I've got a condo, obviously close to the entrance of Glacier National Park. But even at that, I think that scares people off because it's so seasonal. Like that canyon closes down. It's on park time, right? You can still make money, but it's that mentality of, well, okay, you're going to do short-term rentals from May through October, but then you might do a long-term or a mid-term in the off season to supplement income. And I think most people just don't think that way. They get this linear vision that, hey, I've just got to do short-term rentals. And there's other options that are out there. There's also, I think, multifamily options. Pace Morby's bought a couple of RV parks that are there. There was one you and I looked at in Big Fork the motel there in Columbia Falls. There's a lot of other non-traditional stuff. And I look at, if you go on the southwest side of Kalispell, kind of west of Lakeside, where you can pick up acreage, 5, 10, 15 acres with single family homes out there for 20, 30% less than what you would pay in Kalispell or Whitefish, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And what I think, again, like going back to just like being in the know of what's happening locally and also not getting too hung up on the big name cities. Not that we have any huge cities here, but not getting so hung up on that because I have people all the time that are like, oh, well, all I've researched is Whitefish. And I'm like, well, you have no idea that like Kalispell is like right there, or Lakeside is right there, or there's all these sub markets and they focus solely on the research of Whitefish. And it's like, well, yeah, of course you're going to pay a premium there. But the people that are traveling, guess what? The airport's in Kalispell and they're probably renting a car anyway. They're not trying to be necessarily right in the mix of it.
Yeah, there's no good Uber options there. Believe me, you're renting a car for sure. And I think if anybody listening, you guys should know Kenny Bedwell, obviously from SCR Insights, who shares SCRnomics podcast with me. Coram, Montana has been in his top 10 list for the last 2 years in regards to the western part of the United States. Columbia Falls is a great place to invest. So they're the gateway to Polbridge, right? And you can go inside the town, you can go north of the town, you can still get property on the Flathead River. But I love what you say about Kalispell. I've met some people there that have a boutique hotel right in the heart of Kalispell, and they're absolutely crushing. I met him on a ski lift, actually. I had no idea, skiing in Whitefish. It's like you said, if you go into downtown Whitefish, you're going to pay a premium. And there's condos there. You can buy a 2-bedroom condo for 1.3 million. You're not going to make any fucking money. It's cool. It's going to be in Central, but you're better off buying a condo up on the mountain, buy something smaller out by Coram, doing something in Columbia Falls, right? And then there's a lot of stuff down in that Big Fork area that people don't understand what people are paying on a weekly basis and even a monthly basis for properties down in Big Fork and Flathead during the summer.
Yeah.
$30,000-$40,000 a
Yeah.
month for 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom properties, people from California and Arizona and stuff that are coming up there because that lake is just so amazing. And then if you go on that east side, that whole like Swan Mountain area and along that Swan River, there's a lot of great places, right? I think you hit the nail on the head. It's looking for the tertiary cities. So I remember when we first met, I wanted to be in Paradise Valley. Then it was Big Sky. But I ended up going to Whitefish because Whitefish was cheaper than Big Sky. It's still a little bit cheaper, I think, than Big Sky. It's not going to last that way much longer, though, I don't think.
No, I don't think so. They're catching up quick. Yeah, but and I remember when we first met too, talking about those different areas, and I remember sitting at lunch, and you're like, "What do you think?" And I'm like, "I think we need to stop focusing on Bozeman, and we need to like expand." I'm like, "What I hear from you is you're talking about amenities," and I remember that's when we started talking about Whitefish. I'm like, "Whitefish has all the same amenities as Bozeman and Big Sky, plus water. We don't have that down here." And that kind of gives you the 4 seasons. It bridges that shoulder season that we experience, especially in Big Sky.
The most important thing to me is water. There's no question. But I mean, in Montana, at least for me, it's river. I think that's the one reason why Lodge 93, that only property, performs so high. If that was on the lake, it would probably do 50% of what it does being on the river. Because what do people think of when they think Montana? They think fly fishing, they think Yellowstone, the show, but they think fly fishing, they think river runs through it. That
Yeah.
real Montana experience with the big trees, the river, that's the selling point, right? Even if people aren't fishing when they come there, they still can paddleboard, they can kayak, they can wade out into the river. I think the dream is to be in a river, and you're just not going to find that, in the prime markets. It's going to have to be out in more of a remote area.
Agreed, 100%. Good thing is we've got a lot of them.
Right.
We've got lots of area out here, so.
I also think for people that are looking for multifamily, we've looked a little bit and it's pretty pricey, but West Yellowstone, if somebody's looking to enter into that market, and I see the opportunity. I haven't been willing to pull that trigger yet. We just closed on our first hotel in New Orleans, Kenny Bedwell and myself, but I think there's a huge opportunity for those of you, and you're looking in the 4.5 to $7-8 million range for like 20 to 35 room motels in West Yellowstone. But nobody in that size range stays open during the winter. And if you are willing to do the partnerships, there's like 3 brokers that handle the majority of the snowmobile tours for everybody that's there, right? 170, I think it's 175 or 185 snowmobile permits just going in and out of the west entrance. That place is freaking busy during the summer, and you've got like 3 or 4 hotels that stay open, right? There's restaurants, there's that type of stuff. So I think there's a boutique, and they all suck. I went snowmobiling there a couple of years ago. I think there's a huge opportunity for somebody that's willing to renovate and stay open year round to extend that season. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. Like I said, Big Sky Market's already changing to be less seasonal than it used to be, and West Yellowstone's right there, and that just naturally expands into those other markets. So I think that there's a huge opportunity to stand out in those markets because, like you said, nobody's doing it and nobody does it well if they are doing it. I think arguably the same thing with the North Yellowstone entrance out in Paradise Valley. That's the only entrance that is open year round. And I think there's a big opportunity to stand out there as well because it is like the Wild West here in some ways, where it's like mom and pop have owned this forever. They do it the way that they've been doing it, and nothing's going to change unless somebody comes in and does it for them. And so there's plenty of those opportunities.
It's the baby boomer transitional wealth. That's where these hotels and multifamilies are going to be turned over in the next, probably now through the next 5 years.
Yeah.
And there's massive opportunity. You bring up a great point about Gardner because the access on that northwest is through Bozeman, right? And Bozeman is the only airport. Well, I guess you have some flights going into Missoula out of Southwest, but when you have Southwest Airlines, coming into Bozeman, that is a big deal for cost efficient travel. And I remember the first time that we flew into Bozeman and then we drove down through Big Sky to go into West Yellowstone. And actually, that's not true. That was the second time. We made the mistake of flying to Salt Lake City during COVID and then making that 5-hour drive where you're looking, I guess maybe 2.5 hours to get to West Yellowstone from Bozeman, about an hour to maybe 60, 70, 80 minutes to get to Gardner to get in. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. West Yellowstone's not quite that far, but yeah, you're spot on with the north entrance. Yeah.
Well, that depends if it's winter or summer. You get behind one of those trucks that doesn't use the pull out during the winter. That kind of sucked. But you're right. And the other thing that I think people need to look at is like you look at the montage in Big Sky and you talk about the amenities and how they're transitioning. It used to just be a winter season, but now, the luxury amenities that they have from a fly fishing standpoint, the resorts, the lodges, that type of stuff to really push the summer activities, the hiking, the boating, the kayaking, all that type of stuff, the whitewater rafting on the Gallatin. That's transitioning Big Sky into a summer market. And then we see things happening in West Yellowstone that's transitioning them into a winter market, right? And traditionally, people have gone to Island Park, which I guess technically that's in Idaho, right? The thing that I don't like about Island Park is you have to drive through West Yellowstone to get there, and the construction is so freaking wonky. I'm sure you've seen down there like 7-bedroom, 2 baths, the septic swamps, all these. Is that what it's called? Not a swamp, but lagoon. Just crazy shit that's down there. 2,800 square feet, 7 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms. How do you get that in? The bedrooms are like 8 by 8, and you can get a bunk bed in there, and that's it.
Yeah, that's a whole different market than what we're used to dealing with here in Montana. Because while we have some wonky stuff here and there, for the most part, our real estate market is very luxury minded. It's hard to find a shithole, really. There are markets that for the most part, just our standard of real estate is held a little bit higher, I think. So
I would agree. I think it's still an investable place. I would be looking, like you said, around Whitefish, not in Whitefish. I would be looking in the Bitterroot as well. I'd be looking around Big Sky. Probably stay out of Paradise Valley unless you want to spend 2, 3, 4 million, right? That's a pretty high rent district, is it not?
Paradise Valley, there's actually some needle in a haystack opportunities over there that pop up every once in a while. I think Paradise Valley is a big area, so it's running everywhere from Livingston to Prey and beyond, like down into Gardner. And so there's a lot of different little opportunities that I do see pop up a lot, but it's hard to execute with people that don't understand like what that market truly is, because people go to Paradise Valley and they could be staying in Livingston, Immigrant, Prey, Gardner. They don't really care. It's all right there. But I wouldn't cross that one off the list necessarily.
I think a lot of people, and I'm going to end on this, I think they're scared of Gardner and prey in that area because it looks like the photo behind you and they think it's just cattle driving because there's no trees. It's not green. It's not like Whitefish. It's not like the
Right.
Bitterroot. It's not green. But you got to understand the traffic driver, which is fishing on the Yellowstone, and it's the entrance into Yellowstone National Park. Bozeman is the gateway. So when you have to drive through Gardner to get in, that's why if you look at any of the motels, the hotels there, the occupancy rates are so high year round. Like you said, it's the only entrance that is open 365 days of the year outside of, what was it, 2 years ago when they got the flood?
Right.
It's always open. So those are some places. I think that's the sleeper in Montana, to be honest with you. Now, and there's not a lot down there. So, and when something does come on the market that's worthwhile, it's going to go super quick. So that's why they should probably have you be on your watch list. So if something does come up, they can take advantage of it. So I would be looking at the outlying areas. I'd be looking at Gardner. I think that's a sleeper. And the other one that doesn't get a whole lot of discussion is Red Lodge.
Yeah. Yep. Big time. Red Lodge, it's definitely Montana's little secret for sure, but I don't know how long it's going to stay that way.
Right. I think it's early. I think I actually have alerts set up for Red Lodge. I'm waiting for something to pop up there myself. I probably shouldn't tell people that right now, but I've got my Zillow alerts, my realtor, .com alerts when something does pull up there. If you're interested in that, I would reach out to Lauren. How far is that from Bozeman? Like 90 minutes?
Yeah.
2 hours?
Yeah, 2 hours. Yeah. Yeah.
Not too bad, folks. Southwest flight, literally from Denver, Los Angeles, Dallas, whatever, and then 2 hours, and you're at the ski lodge. And then you can go in. What is that? I guess that'd be the northwest entrance. That's not too far from Red Lodge to be able to enter the park, right?
Yeah.
And that takes you, what valley? And that's not Hayden Valley. What's the other valley with all the animals up there? Do you know the name of it inside Yellowstone?
Inside Yellowstone, I don't.
There's two big valleys. I can't remember the second. Hayden Valley is kind of down north of the lake, and then there's one up in that corner. But it's literally like the most indigenous with bears and all that type of stuff. And the wildlife, people love to go there. So you can go like ski in the morning and then go look for grizzlies in the afternoon. It's cool.
Well, and the Billings Airport's even closer there.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Lauren, thank you very much for the Montana update. How do people get in contact with you?
You can go to my website. It's ltremontana.com, or you can reach out to me at 406-595-0286.
And we will drop that information if you're interested in Montana down in the show notes. Lauren, thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to doing our next deal together.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Happy hosting, everybody.